He left everything to his mistress and used my retirement to buy her a week in Maui. I opened the filing drawer and saw a crumpled investment contract beside a resort receipt. The signature at the bottom was hers. The address listed was mine. My knees didn't buckle. They just stopped belonging to me. I was standing, but not really there. It wasn't just betrayal. It was financial infidelity, quiet, signed, and final. There was no place for me in the future I thought we'd built. Are you sure your retirement savings are still yours, or have they quietly built someone else's dream? Her name was Eleanor Grace Dobbins. She had just turned 68 when the roof began to leak. She lived in a pale green cottage on Sycamore Lane, just outside Lebanon Borough in Pennsylvania. The kind of house where porch paint flakes slowly in the sun, where bird feeders swing from nail hooks, where nothing much changes until it does. For 37 years, she'd lived there with Charles, her husband. He liked to call the place ours, until one day, the word didn't seem to include her anymore. Charles had retired early, 2 years before Eleanor did. He said he was tired of the long drives, tired of taxes, tired of doing things that didn't matter. What he really wanted, he said, was to build something lasting. Eleanor listened. She always did. She retired 6 months before it happened after 28 years as a public school accountant. She had been careful, steady. Her pension wasn't large, but she had never lived beyond what was necessary. What gave her peace was the joint retirement fund they'd built, both their names on it, both their work in it. She imagined their future like a porch swing, slow, quiet, solid. Then came Janine Callahan. Eleanor heard the name once, in passing. Marketing consultant, Charles had said, just helping with some branding stuff. He mentioned something about an LLC, something about holistic senior wellness and targeted outreach. Eleanor nodded. She didn't ask. She didn't ask why he now kept a second phone. She didn't ask about the white envelopes that arrived on Tuesdays, marked Dobbins Wellness Group. She didn't ask when he changed the password on the desktop. Some women are raised to believe that silence is loyalty. Eleanor had been one of them. She didn't know then that she was living in a home full of hidden financial accounts, not offshore, not illegal, just elsewhere, quietly moved, quietly renamed, and always just out of reach. Late one night, she walked past the dining table and saw the printer humming. A paper dropped into the tray. She picked it up without thinking. It was a statement of ownership, 100% equity, but the name at the top wasn't hers. She asked him the next morning. He smiled. "It's legal stuff. Ellie, you wouldn't like it." She didn't push. She never did. Charles handled the numbers, and he had his own way of doing things, a rhythm of white envelopes, second phones, passwords changed without mention, and what she would only later recognize as secret spending habits. Then one Sunday in late spring, the ceiling in the laundry room started dripping. She called a contractor. He said he needed 50% down to start. She opened her laptop and logged into their retirement fund. The balance showed less than $200. She refreshed the page, then again. She clicked the contact number on the website and called. The woman on the other end answered gently. The funds were withdrawn in full last month. All records show approval and transfer. Eleanor's voice barely moved. "Transferred to where? To a business entity," the woman replied. "Dobbins Senior Wellness Group, LLC. Then came the pause. "The listed primary owner is a Ms. Janine Callahan." The silence in Eleanor's kitchen was not sudden. It had been building. She stood up, walked to the hallway, opened the bottom drawer of the cabinet where Charles kept loose paperwork. Inside a folder, half tucked beneath a folder of tax receipts. She opened it. Inside was a signed investment transfer agreement. $268,000. No repayment clause. The spousal signature line, blank. Behind that was another sheet, a resort confirmation. Oceanfront suite, 7 nights, 2 adults. Check-in dates last month. The same weekend Charles told her he was visiting his brother in Phoenix. I reached for the paper, but my hand didn't grip. It slid across the surface. I hadn't realized it was damp with sweat. She stood at the desk, motionless. The world did not spin. It narrowed. The walls around her felt like they belonged to someone else. The ceiling bowed in quiet judgment. The hardwood floor beneath her bare feet cooled. She lifted the water pitcher and began to pour into a glass already full. The water spilled over, onto the desk, onto the papers. She kept pouring. Her breathing came in shallow fragments, like air trying to move through gauze. Her eyes blinked once, then froze. There was no scream, just the sound of liquid hitting laminate. Eleanor sat down, not in anger, not in collapse, just absence. She looked out toward the backyard. The garden was overgrown. She hadn't noticed. I should have asked when he said investing wasn't my concern. I should have said something when the first signature wasn't mine. But she didn't. She had let her silence be permission. On the counter behind her, the resort receipt curled slightly at the edges. The ink hadn't dried all the way before Charles left it there. He must have known she'd never open that drawer. Until she did. That night, Eleanor did not cry. She brewed a cup of tea, left it untouched, and when the sun rose over the garden she had once dreamed of retiring in, she went to her closet, pulled out a dusty box marked important, and began sorting through the pieces of a life she thought belonged to, too. Some betrayals are loud. This one was not. It happened in soft sentences, in unopened envelopes, in the unspoken idea that if a woman stays quiet, she'll be protected. Eleanor wasn't foolish. She was careful, kind, and loyal. But she believed in a story many women her age were told. You don't need to manage the money. Just trust the man who does. That story is how financial deception in marriage often begins. Not always with theft, sometimes with silence, sometimes with a smile across the dinner table, while entire accounts are emptied behind closed doors. Eleanor never saw herself as vulnerable. She balanced school budgets for nearly 3 decades. She knew numbers. She knew ledgers. But in her own home, she let go of the wheel. Charles didn't need to lie. He didn't forge her name. He simply acted in the space she left open. He knew she wouldn't read the contracts. He knew she wouldn't question the envelopes. He relied on her trust and used it like currency. This wasn't just a retirement issue. It was financial infidelity quiet, strategic, and legally complex. Because in most U.S. states, retirement funds built during marriage are marital property. They belong to both spouses, even if only one name is on the account. But when one spouse secretly transfers that money into a business and then signs away ownership to a third party, the legal trail begins to blur. Janine wasn't on the wedding license. But now she was the sole shareholder of what used to be Eleanor's future. And Eleanor. She found herself facing a truth many women encounter later in life, that even after decades of marriage, your financial voice can vanish if you don't protect it. She had entered what some quietly call a grey divorce, a separation not just of hearts, but of history, of assets, of dignity. And like many women over 65, she faced it alone. This kind of manipulation doesn't always break the law until someone decides to fight back. Eleanor did. She hired a probate and marital asset attorney, not because she wanted revenge, but because she needed clarity. The lawyer traced the capital. It came directly from their joint retirement. There was no repayment clause, no spousal consent. That made the transfer a possible fraudulent conveyance under Pennsylvania Civil Code. Her attorney filed a motion to freeze the company's assets. He demanded full documentation of the transaction, and he pushed for a valuation of the business's growth since Eleanor's funds had been used. The court didn't give her everything back, but it did what the law can do when someone stands up. It recognized the truth and made them answer for it. The judge ordered Charles and Janine to pay restitution equal to Eleanor's share. The court acknowledged the company was born from shared funds. And Charles, now facing legal exposure, agreed to settle in the divorce. Eleanor didn't win a fortune. She won acknowledgement that the life she helped build didn't disappear without trace. That silence can be undone, even after decades. It was never just about the money. It was about the fact that she was there too in every check deposited, every bill paid, every corner of that retirement fund. And in the eyes of the law, that mattered. Eleanor left the house on Sycamore Lane 4 months after the court ruling. She didn't pack everything. Some things she let go of, like the garden she once loved, the chair he used to sit in, the drawer that still smelled faintly of printer ink and lemon oil. She moved to a smaller place just outside Leetitz, a quiet town 30 minutes north. The apartment had a kitchen that faced east. Morning light came in slow and kind. She bought a new teapot, a soft beige one, and set it beside a notebook where she tracked her spending, now line by line, month by month. She hadn't done that in years. And every Tuesday, Eleanor went to the library meeting room downtown, where a local group of older women met to talk about wills, retirement accounts, property rights. They called it the second ledger. She didn't speak much at first, but after a while, she did. She told them what she had signed, what she hadn't asked, and what she would never ignore again. She also took a course in basic legal literacy for seniors, hosted by a nearby community center. She wasn't trying to become a lawyer. She just wanted to understand what had been used against her. She still had her pension, still had her name, and for the first time in a long time, she knew exactly what both were worth. The woman she was before the one who stayed quiet at the dinner table, who let paperwork slide, who nodded instead of asking, didn't survive the courtroom. She didn't need to. Because what rose in her place was a woman who could stand alone at a desk, look down at a contract, and say, "Not until I understand it. And you, if you are 65 or older, and you don't know whose name is on your house deed, if you've never printed a copy of your retirement account in the last 12 months, if you've never asked where the money goes when it leaves the joint account, do one thing today: print it, read it, circle every name that isn't yours. Do it in silence, do it alone, but don't do nothing, because the money may not scream when it disappears, but you will feel the silence when it's gone." This is what financial infidelity does. It doesn't always take your house. Sometimes it takes your confidence. Sometimes your voice. Sometimes your years. If you've lived a version of Eleanor's story, or fear that you might tell it in the comments, say it plainly. Say it without shame, because someone else is reading, someone who hasn't seen the receipt yet, someone who still thinks trust is a substitute for proof. And your voice, your quiet, steady voice might be the thing that saves her.